Hey there. I just wanted to do a quick example using a Venn diagram to help compute some probabilities, so let's check it out. So I'm just going to read the statement here. There is a 24% probability that Earth will be visited by Dacians, 37% probability that Earth will be visited by Lyrians, 41% probability that Earth will be visited by Wilsonians, a 12% probability that Earth will be visited by both Dacians and Lyrians, a 9% probability that Earth will be visited by both Dacians and Wilsonians, a 7% probability that Earth will be visited by both Lyrians and Wilsonians, and a 2% probability that Earth will be visited by all three. And we have a couple of questions here, well, a few, I guess, associated with this context, and I'll read these three out for us. What is the probability that Earth will be visited by Dacians, Lyrians, or Wilsonians? Or, what is the probability that Earth will be visited by exactly two of these? And what is the probability that Earth will be visited by at most one? So let's check it out using a Venn diagram. I will label this Venn diagram D for Dacians. We had Lyrians and Wilsonians. And the rectangles representing the universal set, or the whole probability space here. Alright, so we want to fill in all these particular portions. We'll start with the very, very middle and work our way out in various levels. So in the very, very center, this is the intersection of all three of these events, which is this 2% part. Remember, this is the Earth getting visited by Dacians, Lyrians, and Wilsonians. So you can use the percentages. You could also convert to the corresponding decimal, but I'll be just using the full percentage here. Alright, so now we need to figure out how to fill in the other regions. So this slice right here is including these two regions. That's when Earth is visited by Dacians and Lyrians. And that has a probability of 12, but I've already accounted for 2% here in the middle. So there's only 10% that Earth will be visited by Dacians and Lyrians, but not all three. Alright, so let's look over here to this region. Dacians and Wilsonians. That has a 9% probability. But we've already counted for two of those percentages, 2% of that, so 9 minus 2. So there's a 7% probability that Earth will be visited by Dacians and Wilsonians, but not all three. And let's take a look at this Lyrians and Wilsonians section. There's a 7% chance there in this whole region. So there's 5 for just this region. Now let's work our way to these regions. So, and each of these regions represents. So you want to see, right, these regions excluding the middle. This is when Earth is visited by Dacians, but nobody else. All right, and we have these probabilities given to us. So there's a 24% probability that Earth will be visited by the Dacians. Now I'm going to use a calculator here. So there's 24% in total, but I've already accounted for 10 plus 2 plus 7. So there's a 5% probability that only the Dacians will come. Uh, 37 for the Lyrians. And I've already accounted for 10 plus 2 plus 5 of those. So there's 20 there. For the Wilsonians, we have a 41%. And we've already accounted for 7 plus 2 plus 5 of those. Which is 27. All right, so now that we're there, let's verify something really quickly. So I'm just gonna add up all of these regions and interpret that. So 5 plus 10 plus 20 plus 7 plus 2 plus 5 plus 27 is 76. So this is 76% chance that Earth will be visited by at least one. All right, because this is the or. And we can do this using this extended principle that we talked about last time. The probability of the union of 3 events is the sum of the individual events. So I'm going to leave that there because we're going to see that we get the same results here. Then we have to subtract each of the intersection pieces. So we have 12 minus 9 minus 7. And last but not least, we have to add back in the triple intersection here, which is all 3. Okay, so that's a good verification. Now, since the rectangle represents everything, it's 100%, so I'm going to label the outside region, which is sort of when Earth doesn't get visited by anybody, at least none of these 3 folks. So 100 minus 76, of course. So there's a 24% chance that Earth gets visited by none of these 3. All right, so let's use this to answer some of these questions. All right, so we had what is the probability that Earth will be visited by Dacians, Lyrians, or Wilsonians? So we just talked about that. That is the union of, that's the probability of the union of D, L, and W. And we found that to be 76. So let's see. Now, what about the probability that Earth will be visited by exactly 2? So exactly 2 means, to bring this back, it would be, for example, getting visited by Dacians and Lyrians, but not all 3, or Dacians and Wilsonians, but not all 3, or Lyrians and Wilsonians, but not all 3. So it's these 3 regions, and they're mutually exclusive. In fact, all of the regions that we've labeled are mutually exclusive. So to find the probability that Earth will be visited by exactly 2, I just add up these 3. So 10 plus 7 plus 5. So 22%. And our last question here, what is the probability that Earth will be visited by at most 1? So at most means 1 or fewer, or 1 or less, right? So here we're getting visited by none of them, so that's definitely less than 1. So let's throw that in there. Oops, 24. And now exactly 1 is also at most 1, right? Because it's exactly 1. And these regions represent the exactly 1 scenarios, right? So like these folks, or this is the situation in which we're visited by Dacians, but nobody else, right? Visited by Lyrians, but nobody else, or visited by Wilsonians and nobody else. So we're going to add up these separate regions. So again, the 24, the 5, the 20, and the 27. And we get 76. All right, so I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you later.